Let's talk about rifle slings. Now, this video is mostly for airsofters, but a lot of these same principles apply. Now, your purpose of a sling is basically threefold, depending on the sling. First off, it allows you, once again, depending on the sling, to have your hands free. I'm no longer holding this rifle. The rifle is on my body, but I can go do other things. You know, if I need to grab that jacket or get a book off the shelf, whatever. Grab a book. I can read it. My hands are free. Anything I need to do, I can do, and I'm not holding on to the rifle. Now, obviously the length isn't quite right for that on this gun, but that's one of the potential benefits of a sling. One of the other benefits, and this isn't relevant to airsoft, is it gives you weapon retention if someone tries to grab your gun. So if you're doing CQB, you kick in a door and there's a dude standing right next to that door, odds are you're coming through the door with your gun up, probably something shorter than this. So you come through the door and guess what? The first thing through the door is your gun. And that is potential for the other guy just to reach out and grab it. And if you have a sling, your gun is physically attached to your person, and he's probably not going to be able to turn the gun around and shoot you with it. Like, if you see this on the sling, it doesn't get that close. So that potentially will protect you from a gun grab situation. You know, somebody grabs your gun, you pull out a knife, stab them a few times till they let go. Not relevant for airsofters, though. And the third potential benefit is stability. A lot of marksmanship is about keeping the gun steady when you're shooting, especially when longer range is, or precision. And if you have a sling, some slings, you can take that, wrap your arm around it. Sorry if I'm not, I don't normally do this. Get it from the right place. And that, with the sling on my forearm here, see, wrapped around my forearm and my wrist, this makes the gun more stable. So that adds extra tension to hold the gun steady while you're shooting. Keep in mind, these are three purposes. Not all slings will accomplish all things. So now let's talk about what kinds of sling you should look at. The two most common is a 1-point sling and a 2-point sling. And these will be designated differences by how many points of contact there is between the sling and the rifle. Now there's also loop slings and 3-point slings. 3-point slings have gone out of style. Loop slings are really only for like match gallery shooting, like type Olympic style shooting. Not really relevant in tactical situations, so we're not going to talk about those. So your options are 1- and 2-point slings. Now, on a 2-point sling, as you can see, I can just let go of this gun, use my hands for other things, and the gun is generally fairly stable. You also have the benefit of, when you're shooting, it can be used as an improvised hasty sling. If I need to drop it and transition to a pistol, the rifle is still on my person while I transition to a pistol. Yeah, I know I don't have a pistol with handy for the video. All of which is nice benefits of a 2-point sling. Now, the problem with a 2-point sling is if I'm shooting here, I'm right-handed, and for some reason I need to go around the left side of a piece of cover, you're going to strangle yourself with your own sling. It's just not convenient for shifting shoulders. Now, some people will take one arm out of the sling, so the sling is only around your neck, and then that gives you some extra slack, so you can switch shoulders, sort of. This doesn't work very well for me with this sling, but that's a real problem with 2-point slings. Now, one-point slings solve that problem, but they introduce a whole different problem. So, generally, one-point sling, I can use it on that shoulder. If I switch sides, I can use it on that shoulder. Not a problem to do. And yeah, my hand's injured, so I'm doing everything slow right now. The problem that's introduced by some of the problems that you get with one-point slings is you can't use it as a hasty sling to increase stability. Like there's just nothing up here to wrap my forearm around. One-point slings also aren't as good as two-point slings at freeing up your hands. So if I let go of this gun, well, you have the first problem is you have a good chance of getting nailed in the nads, and that would really hurt. If you're wearing a chest rig, or plate carrier, it's not as much of a concern because you've got something between you and the gun, so you're slightly less likely to get hit in the nuts, but it's still a concern. The other problem with one-point slings is if I need to use my hands to do something, this is not as stable. If you can see as I'm walking around, this is just bouncing around, hanging free. So your gun isn't as stable if you let go of it to do something else. Now, one kind of hack you can do with one-point slings is you can take your vertical foregrip or a magazine, if you've got one, and just stick it into the sling, and that gets it slightly out of your way. You can see it's not as great as a two-point sling, but it does give you the second point of contact here to keep your hands free if you need to do that. It's not as great, and you can do on a vertical grip like this does. If you've got a magazine in the gun, you could potentially wrap around the magazine also. So let's talk about how your slings attach to the gun. You basically have two different types of connections. Some of them will have clips. So on your gun, you'll have something, something like this, and your sling will just clip onto that. This one actually has sling attachment points on both sides. And you can just clip your sling onto there. You can also get, for rails, you can get different attachments there. I couldn't even tell you what brand this is. I bought it off Amazon almost 8 years ago, and I've just been using, came in like a 4-pack, the cheaper using the freaking gun. So that's one option. You'll also have quick detach slings. Let me go grab one of those. Okay, this gun's set up for quick detach slings. Now, if you have the option, the QDs are actually the way to go. What this will do is your gun will have a hole, and that hole is not the same diameter all the way around. It's actually thinner at the top, and then it'll open up. And your QD point on your sling looks something like that. And it has a button on the back, and when you push the button, it will allow these ball bearings to collapse in, and you can slide it into the hole. Now, some QD mounts will rotate all the way around. This one, as you can see, is set up so it'll only rotate a few degrees, which is kind of nice. Now, right now there's a lot of different styles as to where your sling, generally, unless you're using it exclusively in close quarters to prevent a gun grab, a 2-point sling is probably the better way to go than a 1-point sling. Now, there's a lot of different kind of fashion about where on your rifle your 2-point sling should attach. Some people will say your sling should attach to the stock on the inside and go over your shoulder. So go from here on the inside where my finger is, can't see it, and then goes over my shoulder. Some people will say it'll go on the outside and it'll go over your shoulder. Personally, what I found works best is to have a sling point on the back of the stock here, and one on the front of the handguard as close as I can. Okay, disconnect that. And then generally those just happen to work best for me. Now, one thing to keep in mind if you're using HK clips, which is your sling comes with HK clips, which is what these are. Like something like that. If you just connect this straight up to the rifle, it will rattle around quite a bit. You also have, one of the benefits of HK clips is if you've got two of these on a 2-point sling, you could potentially attach one of the HK clips to this hole and convert your 2-point sling into a 1-point sling. But the big problem with HK clips is they rattle unless you have something to cover them with. I've found that just this elastic material around the clip is perfectly fine for keeping the sound level down, and I don't end up with these rattling much. Also be aware of the hardware in your sling. This sling in my hand is actually from Shein or Shein, the Chinese women's clothing company. My wife did an order and I just kind of bought a $3 sling at the same time to see if it was any good, and it's actually decent. But for duty use, you want to make sure you've got quality hardware. Yeah, if somebody grabs the gun and tries to pull it out of your hands, you want this to not break. So get good hardware, especially here. Like on this one, I've got a plastic piece in there, triangular, and that would take all of the force if somebody tried to pull the gun out of your hand. So, one other thing that's become popular, and I would highly, highly recommend this, is a lot of 2-point slings have the option to disconnect your front point, and usually there's somewhere on the back that you can connect it up, and now I've converted my 2-point sling to a 1-point sling. Depending on what you're doing, that can come in handy if you're in a situation where you might need to switch shoulders. Some of these slings also have adjustable length options. So like, for example, on this sling, you've got an adjustment here that you can quickly, semi-quickly, in theory quickly, grab that and pull it tighter to shorten the sling, or go the other way and make the sling longer. Personally, I don't find these all that useful. I've never run into a situation where I need to adjust on the fly, because most slings will have other adjustment points on here to give you some adjustment range. Also, frequently, especially with 1-point slings, you will have elastic. So like if you look there, that's got elastic on the inside, and that's fairly tough elastic. But it kind of gives you a little extra wiggle room with your sling. Honestly, I'm not a huge fan of the elastic, but if you like it, go for it. Okay, let's go into specific models of sling that I personally use and would recommend. The first option, since it was just in my hands, is the Condor Stryke sling. You can get these from Avic. They're kind of hit or miss availability. They're actually made in the USA, unlike most of Condor's stuff. And they're pretty well made. From the factory, they tend to be too long, at least for a small guy like me. So you can cut it down, sew it, get it to fit. They do have adjustments. In the case of this one, at some point, I cut it down, tried to wrap Velcro around to hold it, and then just gave up and sewed the entire adjustment closed, so you can see the extra stitching in there, which is honestly what I'd recommend doing because they're too long anyways. But the Condor Stryke sling, this one that's on this gun is close to 8 years old. They come in different colors, different camo patterns. I think this is probably ATAX AU. It's popular way back then. and they work surprisingly well. And this is about a $35 sling. And I like the fact that I can convert it from 2-point to 1-point. So this is my go-to sling for anything that has, or that I need HK clips to attach to. So if you the sling attachment on your rifle just happens to have holes that aren't QD swivels, this is one of them. Now, if your rifle has QD swivels, like this one does, what I would recommend is the Magpul MS4 sling. I'm not sure if this is actually an MS4 sling or if I just put MS4 hardware on it at some point in its life, but it's a high quality sling, really well made, really good QD swivels. And QD swivels tend not to rattle like HK clips are, so if you've got the option to use QD swivels, I really would recommend this as the better way to go. On the MS4, as you can see here, it's got the same adjustment I just talked about. It's another one I don't use it much. And you could convert this. This is a convertible sling. So that's basic overview of slings, what they're for, how you attach them, and a couple of recommendations on things to buy. Hope it was helpful. Thanks for watching.